Okay, let's talk about Gat Out of Hell. Now I know it's easy to write this game off as the cheap bastard child to the black sheep of Saints Row's family, but I think that would be a bit unfair. This $20 standalone expansion for Saints Row 4 relies solely on side activities, which I personally find okay because since Saints Row 1 I've always been a fan of side activities. It's one of my favorite things about the Saints Row series, so I don't really have any complaints about the entire game being based on them. But if side activities aren't your thing and you're expecting those elaborate custom crafted campaign missions, then this is not the game for you. But while I do say that I enjoy the side activities, the activities for Gat Out of Hell are a little hit and miss, specifically the targets. The main activities like Hellblazing, Mayhem, and so on are all really good and really fun to play, but then we have shit like Pledge Rush and Destroying Spires, and these are just not fun at all. They're a bit too repetitive and they don't complement the overall gameplay style this game is trying to go for, but these type of filler activities are present in all Saints Row games, so this isn't exactly anything too upsetting. But we have the power of flight. The last thing I'd ever want to do is get into a slow-ass vehicle and deliver it somewhere. Speaking of flying, the ability to fly is really fun and probably what you're going to be doing 90% of the time you're playing. It can be a little awkward at first, and I've heard some people say it was almost unplayable because it was so hard to fly, but I have no idea what they're talking about. Flying is really easy once you get used to it, and it's really fun. The environment still has that dull, lifeless Stillport feel to it, but it actually works a lot better here, and I really like it. The lava looks beautiful, and the city feels like it's been designed around the flying gameplay, which is great. For Saints Row 4, they just directly copied Stillport from Saints Row 3 and added a few platforms. But the city of New Hades is a city built with a superpower gameplay in mind, and it makes for an overall better gameplay experience. So yeah, it's really good. Lots of little details everywhere. There's even a bunch of commentaries you can collect where Gat will talk about his surroundings. Again, this is nothing you can compare to Stillwater, but it holds its own. There's no customization options whatsoever. No clothes, plastic surgery, or anything like that. However, you can upgrade your weapons and abilities, which also once again, like Saints Row 3 and 4, you can't downgrade these options, meaning that it is possible to make this game too easy and be locked into an easy game. But surprisingly, this game is actually pretty challenging. Playing on hardcore mode actually gave me a decent challenge, not like Saints Row 3 and 4 where basically you'd have to be brain dead to ever die. So that's definitely a plus. There's no radio whatsoever, so no on-foot radio, no radio in the cars, and yeah, that's kind of a bummer because Saints Row has really shaped my musical taste over the years. I discovered the Waves in Saints Row 3, one of my favorite bands. A good chunk of my playlist is music from Saints Row games, but I don't find it that big of a deal because I can just open up YouTube, put on one of my favorite albums, and bam, back in the game, collect some clusters, good times. There's a lot of fun weapons in this game, and I can go on and on about every little detail, but this game is simply an upgraded version of the open world gameplay of Saints Row 4. That's really all it is. Do I think this game could have been better? Oh yes, I think this game could have been a lot better. Once again, in my Dex video, I explained that there's certain things that could have been elaborated on, but instead, most of what you see is what you get. Very basic gameplay design, nothing at all stands out, and things like that. But I'd be lying my ass off if I said I didn't enjoy what I played. Oh, we need to talk about the story. I forgot. Ugh. In a way, I'm kind of glad that there's no story missions because I really hate this story. I'm completely biased when I say this because I'm an old school fan, and I've talked about this in great length before, but once again I have to say, this is not the Saints Row that I know. Gat is a completely different character and oftentimes a weird forced parody of himself. Kinsey used to be a niche minor character and even she has somewhat changed from her original style. But to be completely honest with you, I can't give a proper review of the story because I've been skipping through it. I have no fucking idea what happens throughout this game because I've been skipping every cutscene. The boss, Shaundi, everyone has changed, so my emotional investment in these characters is zero. I couldn't give less of a fuck about the 3rd Street Saints anymore. Like, really though, they've stated that they're not trying to focus on the story so much, and it really shows. So why should I even give a shit to begin with? They butchered the story over the series, so as far as I'm concerned, there is no story. And I think that I find myself enjoying the game a lot better with that state of mind. There are multiple endings, and many people keep asking me what I think about them, but to be honest, I don't think they matter. Like, at all. I personally think Gat Out of Hell marks the ending of the Saints Row 1 through 4 series. This is Steve Jarris' last game. It wraps up some unanswered questions. The 100% ending, which some people consider to be the true ending, really wraps up everything nicely. All these other endings are for the player's own personal headcanon. How do you want the original Saints Row story to end? Over the top, sentimental, back to basics? It's kind of interesting, but like I said, I don't think any of it matters. I think that Saints Row 5 will most likely be a reboot and a fresh start to the series. Otherwise, at this point, they're kind of beating a dead horse by having multiple endings yet never elaborating on those endings in the sequel. It's just bad story structure in my opinion, and it's a big letdown to all the players that pick the wrong ending. But that's all I have to say. As a fan of video games, I can spot a decent game when I see one, but as a fan of Saints Row, I know they can do a lot better. But just rating this game by itself, I recommend it. 6.5, 7 out of 10-ish, somewhere there, I don't know. For $20, I got around 10 hours out of it. Only get it if you're a big fan of Saints Row 4 or you've got nothing else to play.